Looks like we're good. All right. Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. Tonight we are joined by 2018 Kayak Bass Fishing Angler of the Year, Cody Milton. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Doing well. Just beating the cold down here in the South for once.
Oh, I bet. How cold is it down there for you?
Yeah, we actually warmed up today. Today it was almost 50-ish, but we've been in the 30s, so it's
Oh,
been
geez.
it's been chilly for me.
Yeah, it's been pretty much consistently 20s to low 40s up here, but today you got 46, so it's kind of nice.
Okay, I can hang with that. I don't know about the 20s though.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the mornings were pretty rough, but
Yeah,
we'll push through. I mean, there's no snow yet, so I can't complain too much.
still got open water, don't you?
Oh boy, connection lost. That's not good. You there?
Yeah, I can see and hear you. Yeah,
I have to go through and edit this. For some reason, my Wi-Fi is acting up today.
no
This
problem.
happened. This happened too when I was doing this with Mikey Balls, where I kept losing
Yeah,
connection. It was weird. I
that's
hope it doesn't keep doing that. That's gonna get interesting. All
fine.
right, because I don't want to miss any part of your conversation, so
Yeah.
it should be good.
All right.
All right, so pretty much hopping right into it. I want to hear the whole backstory of how you got into fishing, who got you into it, that whole 9 yards.
Well, so I grew up in a fishing family. It's my grandpa lives on Kentucky Lake in Cypress Creek. So even when I'd go spend the summers there, pretty much 2-3 months out of the year, and we would go crappie fishing and brim fishing, and I'd always be in the back trying to throw a crankbait or something, trying to bass fish. And my dad was kind of the same way, and he actually he fished on the Costa series, before, I guess it was the Stren series before that. So pretty much when I was in junior high, even a little earlier than that, I guess it would probably been we were tournament fishing pretty hard when I was in 4th to 7th grade, and then really started traveling that kind of 8th grade through about senior year of high school. So our family vacations were following Dad around to these, Gunnersville to Okeechobee to Harris Chain. So that was pretty fun. Mom stuck with us though. She fishes, but she was definitely very supportive of it all. So,
Yeah.
but no, it was, in our weekends. I remember especially when I was in 8th and 9th grade. I mean, we were tournament fishing 2 to 3 days a week, because you had Tuesday night tournament, then you had a Friday night tournament, then you had a tournament on Saturday. And sometimes we wouldn't do all three, but I mean, man, Dad did as good a job as he could at getting to me as many of them as he could, and I ate it up. I mean, it was, I played sports and played baseball, did all that kind of thing, but I guess it was my 10th grade year. I quit everything other than golf and tennis, and just so I could tournament fish in the springs. And I definitely don't regret it. You missed out on some things, but I definitely gained an invaluable amount of knowledge being around those coastal level guys at such a young age. Yeah, I mean, it really is I can't. Yeah, I still believe I've learned more about bass fishing, in that part of my life than I have even traveling around kayak fishing the last few years. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was great. I wouldn't change a thing about my childhood though. It was fun, and I got to go to a lot of cool places. I mean, it's how many people that were 16 had been on all these famous Tennessee River lakes and all that kind of stuff. So it was definitely unique, but it was a good time for sure.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not many kids that age can say they got to meet all these cool guys who know so much about bass fishing. And
Absolutely. And it's just, even watching those guys' demeanor, especially that guy like Gary Klein or something, or, just watch him in a restaurant. I mean, those top guys are so professional. I mean, they really, really are. I mean, on and off the water, they're working, it's a sport where it's hard to gain an edge in any one thing. So anything you can do that's someone else isn't doing is just all the better for you. And it's just, those guys keeping care of themselves off the water and putting in more time before they get to a lake. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for those guys that do it the right way like that.
there's a lot of work that goes into being a successful angler, especially at that level.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it's I'm hoping to make a little boat appearance here in the next 2 years, but we'll
Okay.
see. I'm without a boat right now. Have been for about a year and a half. So I trout guide, so I do have a trout boat, but I don't have any no big nitro or Ranger running around the lake. So
Yeah. So around you, what state or specifically are you in right now?
I'm in Central Arkansas.
In
Yep.
Arkansas? I didn't know there was a trout population down there.
So we hold, you mean the White River, the Little Red River, North Fork, all three of them held the world record brown trout for
Oh,
numerous.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
like I think just the other day, Taneycomo had like a 36 or a 37 pounder weighed, but the white's been, if I recall correctly, since 2015, we've had at least 6 over 30 pounds landed on the white. It's getting close. The record's been gone from Arkansas for like 4 or 5 years now, but they've been close to getting it back several times. And that's all ramping up too. Like our Browns are in full spawn mode here in the next. They're starting to do it. I mean, they're getting there, but it's not quite on yet. But yeah, no, that's what I tell everybody. Arkansas is more famous for chasing monster brown trout than bass or anything else.
That's
But
crazy. I never knew that.
yeah, everybody goes to Montana and Colorado just
Yeah.
to scenery, but I mean, we can go catch, so many 20+ inch browns.
Yeah, I think people go over to the west for more of that, like you just said, more of the scenic route of things, and a little more of like
Absolutely.
hiking into the mountains in the middle of nowhere type of deal.
Yep. Yep. No, I mean, and the fish is unbelievable. We did the angler tour came here about 6-7 weeks ago, and we probably boated close to 70, 50 fish. I mean, as many as we wanted to. And we caught some good browns. The bite was a little tough when they were here, but yeah, man, those rivers are fun. I mean, the white gets a lot of commercial traffic, but the Little Red, which is where I live and guide on the Little Red, so we held the record the longest. But I don't know. The fishing on the Little Red hadn't been quite what it's been in years past. So
Yeah.
I don't see the record getting broken again out of the Little Red, but I could be wrong.
Is there a reason for that at all, or is it just because
We've just got a bunch of smaller browns now. They cut back on the rainbow stocking in hopes of giving the browns more room to grow and things, but it hadn't really happened. All that really happened was we got a whole lot more like 14 to 16 inch brown trout. Whereas like when I was younger, I mean, you would see those 25 to 30 pound trout a lot more often. And I mean, I'm on the river, 50 days a year, and I really haven't seen one in the last couple of years. So
wow,
I don't know what the deal is. Yeah.
that's interesting. And the whole ecosystem, how that kind of mixes with each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, my pay grade. I don't know how that all works.
Yeah. I mean,
Trout is they're like a foreign language to me right now. That's
yeah.
one I would like to dwell into, but for me, I like if I'm out there like fishing like for perch or something like that or northerns, which I haven't done in seriously like a long time because of this. But if I'm going out for a different species, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what are the bass doing right now? Why am I not fishing for bass? Like I go nuts. So yeah, how did you start getting into kayak bass fishing? Is what I'm interested in hearing.
So, the way it kind of goes is I was a senior in high school. Dad was still doing the Costa thing full time that year, and I didn't get to do it as much that year. So I went to college at Harding University for 2 years, and he kept fishing those 2 years, and I didn't. I mean, I think I fished a couple tournaments, like local events,
Yeah.
just kind of by myself because he couldn't fish them anymore. But and he quit that third year of school, and so I actually moved to Florida to go to a golf school, and so I played golf down there in the winter, and he lived like in Orlando. I had like Kissimmee 10 minutes from my house or less. And these lakes that were just like in my apartment complex that had hydrilla that was growing out of 20 foot of water. And I was like, there's probably some fish out there. And at the same time, I had the Mosquito Lagoon 30 miles to my east, or 45. So I was like, I'm going to go buy one of those Bass Pro kayaks. So I did. It was actually kind of crazy story. We were out there one day, actually off the coast of Tampa, king fishing in the kayaks.
Okay.
And I just finished a golf tournament and was like in the final pairing, like went great. And we're like, we'll take Sunday off and go fishing. So we did, and we'd caught 7, 8 Spanish mackerel, and I jigged up a bunch of bait on a like sabiki rig, and it's the first bait we'd seen all day. So jigged it up, man. I put one on a hook, and like 5 minutes later, the line just starts going, just ring. And I'm like, I'm thinking it's a shark at first, and I'm not really paying it much attention. And so I like 10, 15 minutes later, I get it next to the boat and start seeing color on it, and I'm like, man, that's a giant kingfish. And so I grab its tail, and I don't have a gaff. I don't have a knife. All I have is a fillet knife. And I grab its tail, and I go to knife it in the head, and it's thrashing, and the knife kind of slips in my hand and flexes over, and I actually cut my finger off. So all I've got is like the bone on my finger at this point. I'm 3 miles.
Oh, gosh.
Tampa. So I cut my sleeve off, and I'm like, all right, we can make it back or whatever. And kind of, I don't really start freaking out, but more than my buddy was freaking out. And he was like, dude, you got to call the Coast Guard. You're not going to make it. And so we end up calling the Coast Guard. They get me back. All the Coast Guard actually took pictures of this fish. It was that big. And so long story short, I'd been down there playing golf for several months, doing like the mini tour stuff and working at the course. So I cut my finger off and was in a cast for like 9 months after a couple surgeries and all that good stuff. Still doesn't work, but it's on there. The golfing was kind of over unless I wanted to do the teaching thing, which I was kind of like, that's what I was going to do, but it's not all I wanted to do. So I think my lease ran up about when I could got out of, occupational therapy and all that kind of stuff. So I moved back to Arkansas, and somehow I found some KBS tournament. It was actually before I left. I fished a tournament down in Florida. And never even heard of it. Man, I think it is, to this day, it's the only day I don't think I've ever caught weighed in a fish in a catch photo release tournament. I was trying to sight fish on the St. Johns River, and I didn't realize that it was impossible to sight fish out of a kayak without a power pole. And so I leave, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, there's fish here, and I can't even catch them. So that was like the first. There was a lot of learning curve, I would say, for about the first 4 tournaments. Like, other than that, when they went well, but I was trying to fish like I was out of a boat, and I still tend to. But I got a power pole after that too, I believe, sometime after that. But yeah, so that was pretty much it. I would have still be down in Florida golfing had I not caught that 44-pound kingfish.
You cut your finger off, and that's what got you.
That's what kind of actually got me into it. Yeah.
When you lose a finger, you might as well say screw it. I might as well go all into it, right?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, and actually, I had a fortunate situation, and Dad had just sold a company that he'd built and worked on for about 20 years, and he had bought a couple, like a T-shirt company, an ice cream shop, and an outdoor store in the same little town in Searcy that I'm from, in Searcy, Arkansas. So I actually ended up just kind of moving back and working for him some, and started guiding for my friend that owns Tailwater Fishing Company on the Little Red River. And that was 3 years ago, I guess, maybe almost 4 here coming up. So since then, that's kind of what I've been doing, and, really started traveling hard, I guess, 3 years ago. And it's just, I've had some fortunate breaks. The Angler of the Year was really big for me. And winning the 10 was big, and that was probably honestly bigger than I even thought it would be. And this year's went well too. It's just I wasn't able to win the Angler of the Year this year, and it was kind of the whole goal of the year was to win that. And there was people had some great years this year, from Matt Scotch, Russ Snyder's. There was some really good. People had some great years. But I was fortunate. I did win the Southeast Regional Angler of the Year, so that was nice. But didn't win the overall one. But all right, there's always next year.
You can't win them all. You can't win every single one.
No, but
you can, but it's very, very, very hard to do.
Yeah,
so. That's one thing that's cool is watching KBF just get better and better each year. Just the anglers, the knowledge, general basis just gets better by each year.
Yeah,
it's crazy to see that angler base, like the population, keep growing and
Mhm.
escalating. I think people are starting to realize with the boater tournaments, there's a lot of money involved, but also there's, besides the entry fees, there's gas, there's maintenance, your boat breaks down. Sure, you can lose a paddle or something, but generally you're not going to break down too often in a kayak. So,
Yep. Boat stands for break out another 1,000. That's what they say.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep.
But, yeah, man, even in practice, a lot of times those guys will spend $250 in gas a day. And then you start making 100-mile run. You're doing it in the tournament too. So it
Yeah.
adds up quick. It adds up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to remember who it was. I want to say it was Polinick when he was in the elites when they went to St. Lawrence, and he ran all the way to Ontario, and he would have to stop each way at a gas station to fill up again because he was traveling that far.
Yep.
Like that's the gamble you have to make, but in the long run, it's like you better hope that gamble pays off with a big old check because that's a
Yep.
lot of money you put in the gas right there. So,
Yep. Insane. Some
yeah.
big old gas tanks too.
Which is interesting because you bring that up with practice and all the different decisions for boaters and whatnot. As a kayak angler, you can't really make those same decisions that those guys can. They're like, all right, yeah, I want to try another spot 15 miles down. It'll only
Yep.
take me 20 minutes to get there. Whereas a kayak angler, if you want to go 15 miles down, you got to go back to the truck, pack up, drive, and unload again. So, like, going into tournaments, how do you kind of strategize where you're going to fish, where you're going to start, or do you kind of just wing it? Like, how does that work?
I mean, it to me it depends how the tournament sets up for me. Like I mean, we've got the tournament champions coming up this weekend, and on this one, I've tried to stay not too far from ramps, and a lot of times I don't do that, but I want to be able to run a bunch of different places, so I don't want to look 3 miles plus out.
Mm.
Um, there's other tournaments where, like, if I feel like they're setting up offshore, I am going to go a long ways and find things in that area. But most of the time, I mean, people kind of know, like, I fish really, really fast. So for me, I try to find even much less places that are close to a ramp, but even ramps that are close to other ramps. Um, and I mean, I do have a Torpedo, so like going, 4, 5, 6 miles isn't that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a totally different game. And to take it even kind of a step further, I would say you get so much pressure close to those ramps a lot of times in kayak tournaments. I've seen that. I mean, that's definitely hurt me and hurts a lot of people. But it's like sometimes finding that kind of B-rated water, not really the best water that everyone probably sees as the best. A lot of times you can win tournaments in that B and C quality water just because you actually have an area to yourself. But I've really seen a lot of tournaments that I didn't actually think I was going to do that well in. I just happened to have the whole area to myself, and you can just make the most of it so much more. You can get everything out of it, and that's so. I mean, you kind of look for that. It's just I don't know. It's hard to say. You prepare so much before you get to a place, and you don't really know what it's going to throw at you. So right when you get there, so
Yeah, I don't think I've ever prepped for a tournament and then what was lined up on deck was the same thing as what I went into the tournament with. I don't think
yeah,
that's ever happened. I don't think it's ever happened for anybody. That
yeah,
if a tournament, like if it's very rare, if so.
yeah, very rare. But
So you put that research in on avionics and you're mapping before you go, and your first day of practice, you look in the what you got behind you, and you're like, yeah, that's not gonna work here.
yeah,
You're like, nope, water's a little bit dirtier than you thought, so now you're switching up.
mm-hmm.
It's different, but.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit more about the Tournament of Champions coming up. I'm not going to ask you specifically, what are you going to do, what are you going to throw, because obviously I want you to, leave that to yourself and your own doing. But
Yeah.
talk a little about the tournament. What's going on with different information with it, and why you're looking forward to it.
Man, they really set it something up pretty special this year. It was, and I'm probably going to be a little off about this, but I think they ran. You may know better than I did. I think I only fished one of them actually. It was they did 6 opens I think across the country, like California, Lake Fork, maybe one on Gunnersville, Kentucky Lake, St. Clair. I think they ran one other one, but and then they did like 6 satellite tournaments around the country that were just one-day events. And the winner of the satellite tournaments qualified for the Tournament of Champions, and if you finish in the top 6 of one of their live open tournaments that are 2 days long, then you also qualified for the Tournament of Champions. And however those numbers are, they come out to 50. So there's 50 people at the Tournament of Champions. And I think there's a Hobie Bass Open shootout that's the day before the tournament on Friday, where they're going to take another 3 people.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and I think we're fishing for $50,000 per, so $20,000 for first, paid out the 10th. So it's a big deal. I saw Bass did a write up about it just last week. So
Wow.
it's getting some big attention and the right attention. So we'll see. It's the closest tournament I've had to me all year, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Where's that one at again?
It's actually on Lake Ouachita in Arkansas.
Okay, so it's a home game for you then.
Man, it is, but those lakes are really hard to. They're easy to go catch a bunch of fish, but they're really hard to target like those 3 and 4 pounders, the few that there are. So it's like, but you still have to have them to win. So. That's I did pre-fish like 3 days last week, so I've got some idea what I'm going to go do. But like I said, it has cooled off a lot here since then, so I don't know. I don't know what will take home the 20,000.
And at this time of year, the way conditions change so fast, it's not like that July to September lull where everything kind of stays relatively the same.
Yep,
it's like everything's ramping up and temperatures dropping.
Just last week I caught them in a less than a foot to 30 foot, and just as well. Like wasn't any better than the other. So I don't know. Well, I'll be out there.
Options.
Yeah, no, and everywhere in between too. I mean, it's lakes super deep, super clear. 15-foot clarity in a lot of places. If you're in the right areas, there's 20-foot grass. I mean, it really is a pretty phenomenal fishery.
Wow.
Yeah, the FLW Cup's been held there, 3 or 4 times. So, but we'll see. It's not notorious for being an easy lake or even a good lake, so it will be tough.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the coverage on it and see how different anglers are kind of progressing throughout it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a 2-day tournament.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. So is that a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday?
It's the shootouts on a Friday and the tournaments on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay.
So,
that's gonna be tough for those 3 guys. Whoever make it past the shootout, turn right around and go back and do 2 days.
Yeah, that's true.
That's gonna be a real challenge for them. But I mean, hey, if it's worth getting to the Tournament of Champions,
oh heck yeah,
gotta do what you gotta do, right? So
yeah.
So is the shootout on Ouachita as well?
It is. Yep, it is. So,
which should be interesting because they're probably gonna have to do a lot of research prior to it because they're gonna need a spot for 3 days, not 2, like you guys. So they can't blow out. I mean, they'll probably blow out their spot to get into.
I assume. I know I would. I hope those aren't one of my places. That's kind of because I was kind of kicking around the idea of fishing it, but I was like, I don't know if I have enough places to go fish for 3 days. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
You just gotta start going to your spots and taking pictures, saying, "Hey, there's no fish here whatsoever." Putting post-its on. There you go.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like on those bigger lakes, especially because if it's only a 50-person tournament, I feel like you'll be relatively on your own. I don't know how big Ouachita is. I've seen it on a map and I've looked at it, but I've never actually looked into information on how big it actually is. But I feel like
2,000. It's the biggest in the state. Yeah.
I imagine with only 50 anglers, I'm sure a couple guys will run into each other, but I would imagine a lot of guys won't even see each other throughout the day. So.
And I hope that's right. We'll see. It's just like I said, the lake's so clear. I assume people are going to tend to try to find dirtier water, and that kind of gets small when you try to do that. So I don't know. We'll see. There's not a whole lot of good rivers that run into it. And they're not letting you go up one of the rivers for some reason. So that kind of takes one of the dirty water places out and puts more pressure on all the other dirty water places. So
yeah,
we'll see. I've got plans to do both. So
yeah,
it goes. Yeah.
But it's it's interesting that it's part of your thought process is trying to think of where people are going to go and then don't go there. Because that's something I look at. Uh,
Yeah.
like a lot of tournaments, at least up here in New York, um, there's a lot of glacier lakes, and a lot of them are big, known for boaters, like just pleasure boating. So there's a lot of docks along the lake and whatnot. And I know for like a 60-person tournament up here in New York, a lot of our guys are just going to be beating the bank, flipping docks the entire time. So if I can find an offshore grass bite, I'll be by myself for the majority of the time. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of interesting how that's kind of a commonality. And I'm sure it's
Oh,
not. I'm
yeah.
sure it's not. We're not the only ones. I'm sure
It's
that's pretty popular, but
hard to win in a crowd. You can do well fishing in a crowd, but it's hard to win in a crowd.
you got to be the one guy doing something completely different than the
Yeah.
rest of the pack,
Right.
or you just get lucky.
Yeah. A little of both.
Yeah. And naturally, it's easier, I feel like, to find bites in dirtier water than it is obviously crystal clear. But
Yep.
if you can find the fish and you can get away from the crowd, I mean, I'm sure you could put together a good 2-day limit.
Absolutely. Oh, I'll be in the gin clear water too. It's a lot for whatever reason on that lake. It's a little more inconsistent. I think they roam a lot more in that clean water. There's a lot of like standing pole timber and stuff. Nothing they actually really hold on. They just kind of use. So I don't know. I'll try the clean water too. Try it all.
But it seems like in dirtier water, bass tend to relate to that structure because I feel like if it's dirtier water, there's not as much visibility, and they're out in the middle of the open, they have it's kind of like they don't have a sense of where their GPS is going. But
Yeah.
where it's like for us like a GPS, like if we see a building we recognize, we're gonna relate to that. So it's I don't know, kind of in the sense of that. But I feel like in crystal clear water, you're willing to go out and explore a little bit more because you can see where you're going, you know where you are.
Yep.
I think that's kind of why they behave that way. But I'm so much more confident in crystal clear water than I am in dirtier water. I've
Yeah.
had better success with fish in dirtier water,
Mhm.
but for me, like if I do so much better when I can see what I'm fishing at. If I can see bottom, see what I'm working with. Sight fishing just naturally as a kayak angler starting early without any graph or any electronics.
Mhm.
That was one of my strengths of sight fishing, so that's where I feel at home. So
No,
crystal clear would be the way for me to go if I was down on Ouachita for sure.
come on down. Get the shootout left.
Yeah. I wish I could. I'm currently in Indiana, but I'll be fishing some of the lakes in Michigan
Okay.
here this week, so that should be fun. But I'm missing my kayak. It's been I think almost 4 months now without my kayak, so I feel a
Dang.
little
So
lost, a little
you're in the
incomplete.
boat.
What's up?
Said you're in the boat.
No, unfortunately, I'm from land, but I got one of my buddies. I don't know if you know Bass and Bill
Heard of
on
him.
YouTube. Yeah, we're linking up in Michigan next week, so
Nice.
going out on his boat. But
Chasing some
yeah,
small.
oh, that's the plan. Some big
Yeah.
Michigan smallies, yeah,
Yeah.
right, Lake Michigan, so it should be interesting
Oh,
for sure. But this year with fishing the KBFs, going into a tournament, because I mean I would ask you how your strategy is going into this one, but I'd rather not try to blow up any of your strategies. But on a tournament this past year with KBF, your strategy going into a tournament, like was overall like common strategy that you use. What would it be going into a lake that you've never fished before?
um, let me think. Um, I don't think. I don't think I fished a lake this year that I hadn't been on. That's not true. I fished Pickwick. I'd actually never been on Pickwick, and that was our regional championship was on Pickwick, and I'd actually had never been there. Um, I mean, like Pickwick, for example, you know, you're so notorious for those giant smallmouth now, and the grass is so good now, and all that kind of things. And I mean, the first place I went was I tried kind of replicating something that I'd done on Chickamauga on a similar kind of channel swing with a grass flat, like on the main river. And I punched a ton on Pickwick, and it just caught some really big ones in practice, but I didn't ever feel that comfortable about it. Um, and then from there, the next thing I did when I checked the extremes. That's kind of a big. Even it's really big in the spring, but it's really good to do anytime. is start all the way out and then start all the way back. And you're going to catch fish somewhere in between there. And a lot of times you can just take one area and do that. Yeah, I mean, even like on Kentucky Lake or something, you can legitimately take one bay. I mean, everyone knows how big Kentucky Lake is. Like, you can take Cypress Bay and you can fish the mouth of it, and you can flip in the very back of it, fish the little road beds in the middle of it. And somewhere in there, you're going to find the most bait, and you're going to find more activity than anywhere else. And a lot of times when you find that, especially now in the fall, you can usually take wherever that is in the pocket a quarter of the way into the pocket, 3/4 of the way into the pocket, and you can go run all those bays, and that's somewhere in that same range. That's where they're going to be. And that's when you can start finding the next closest ramp and finding the best water that you can do what you're doing in. And it's, and it still just kind of comes down to a mental game, but the preparation of getting those little things kind of right, and keep knowing you're in good water to have a chance to catch good fish goes a long ways. It really does. I mean, that's how I do it. I mean, I would just say, the extremes is a big thing. That, and like I said earlier, I really like to fish fast. So even like when I'm fishing on the bottom, I'm fishing a biffle bug or something that I can fish really, really fast. And then I'm fishing something in the middle and something on top. And you do that and go from one extreme to the other as far as starting all the way out and going all the way back. I mean, things, one bite leads to another bite. And then from there, you really can, get on a pattern and start running with something. But
Okay.
that's what I would say.
But it sounds like a lot of more area and, a more depth contour strategy versus a bait strategy where you're going to throw something's going to bite, and that's what's going to lead you towards your bait selection.
I use 4 baits. I mean, it doesn't really, I don't worry about the baits. I mean, there's so many bass in lakes that they're not all that smart. I mean, it's like when you get around a lot of them, like you're still going to get bites on everything.
Yeah.
Especially if you're presenting it the right way.
Okay.
I mean, I don't use crazy colors. I don't even really use sparkles or anything like that. It's just I've actually had a lot of people that don't really necessarily agree with this, but I like matching the bottom. But if you can match the bottom with a jig or a biffle bug or something, I think it actually works better. Everyone's big into the contrast, and I mean, I kind of am with swim baits and such, and maybe even a topwater. But other than that, like when I'm on the bottom in the middle of the water column, I try to actually match the surroundings. And it seems to like sneak up on them. I mean, there's times when it's so dirty, I don't think it does as well. But it's just, I mean, crawdads, they're not orange, they're not red, they're not blue. They're really whatever they're in. And that's why like red's so big in Texas because there's so much clay everywhere. And it's like green pumpkin's big everywhere because everywhere's got some silty stuff in it,
Yeah.
So I don't get too caught up in the colors. I'm a lot more in the believer in the area I'm in.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of different episodes I've watched on like Wired to Fish or like Tactical Bass, and they don't really have the episodes. They kind of my kind of thinking is more in line with what they are, where they have like 3 basic colors. But there's guys some of the Wired to Fish episodes that are like, I have like this color where it's like black and orange, and then I have a green pumpkin with fire, and it's like all of this is all over the place. It's like, how do you keep track, and how do you know when to use these wacky colors? Like for me, I stick to simple. Green pumpkin's what I use pretty much 90% of the year until like springtime, pre-spawn, I'll throw black and blue, even if it's crystals, because they look like bluegill.
Yeah.
Unless it's dirty water, I'll throw black and blue. And I very rarely have any white or silver jigs unless it's a swim jig. So that's really all I stick to. Like, it just keeps it simple. And I think I agree with what you said. As long as you have the colors that you need, you keep it simple, but you have you work the presentation in a way that actually replicates the bait. That's how you're going to get your bites. And if that means, I mean, there's certain times where I'll have like a swim jig that's flat white, but I'll take a Sharpie to it and add a black dot, depending on I'm going after replicating alewives or whatever it may be. But I agree with that for sure. It's definitely area over bait selection.
Absolutely.
Be the right strategy, at least for some people.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of guys that focus too much about what they're throwing rather than where they're throwing.
Yep, and it drives me crazy. I don't have enough time to worry about that.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of other things. I can get a lot more cast in without retying. So I don't know. Just how I am. A lot of times, I think I always like the dumber you make bass, I think the easier they are to catch at times. Not to say that they are. I mean, they are really. They are smart, but it's kind of the more you can kind of dumb it down for yourself, it kind of makes it easier to learn, I think.
And the prime example of that is a wacky rig.
Yeah.
So simple, but it seems to catch everything.
Absolutely.
And honestly, like when what's up?
Oh, so yeah, absolutely everything.
Yeah, up here in New York, at least in my experience, like when sight fishing, I'll see some big 4s or 5s cruising, and like for New York, a 4 or 5 pounder is like a good fish, a real good fish for up here. So you don't think I'm crazy when a 4 or 5 talk about that's a big fish, but I'll very very subtly skip a jig towards it or something like that, and they won't care at all. I'll throw a glide bait. They don't care. They'll take a little interest, but then they won't actually commit to it. But you splash a wacky rig right in front of them. For some reason, they just go nuts about it. I couldn't tell you what it is, but yeah, it's weird. It's very interesting the little intricacies amongst baits and presentations and why they bite versus why they don't.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So if you, what's that?
Said the old Cinco. Yeah, it's just everywhere.
The one that's most hated but used the most.
But yeah, it's probably won more money on it than anything else too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I was watching. Oh crap, what is his name? He's Angler of the Year this year in FLW.
David Dudley.
Yeah. I can't believe I forgot that name. I should tell you, but that dude. Like I was watching live when he was. I think it was Chickamauga when he was just skipping a Senko under trees. And he was like, yeah, everybody makes fun of this bait, but he like holds up his 6-pounder. He goes, but it catches these, so they can just, deal with it. It was just funny. Like even the pros were like, yeah, you know what? It's boring to use, but he gets paid. So
yep.
I would love to know what fish actually think when they see that. I think they just think it's easy prey, but
subtle presentation, I don't know. And I think it falls so slow. You're covering the whole water column and catching fish on the bottom with it too, which I think is kind of good.
I think that like you mentioned the fall rate I think has a big to do with it, but also that slight little undulation it has when it falls.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Just something that kind of is like sitting there like, wow, it's easy, but then kind of pisses them off because it just looks like you're just literally letting it hang there in their face. Yeah.
It really changes too whether you Texas rig it or wacky rig it too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I actually think it looks better Texas rigging it. The wacky rig can get too much movement. You put a little, like a wacky rig hook on it with an 1/8 or a 16th weight. I don't know. Like I know down in Florida, those Texas rig ones are way, way better. But
it's also just more grass too, right?
True, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I've noticed. I've won a tournament up here, when it was post frontal, so obviously the top waters, nothing was really working. That was aggressive. So my buddy and I went to, it was a 15-foot to 20-foot drop off of grass. It went from no grass to straight milfoil in 20 foot, and we were trying everything. We were flipping docks, we were flipping grass, even that same grass line. It was a section like 100 yards of grass that we were trying to flip, but we weren't getting anything. So I'm like, screw it. Like if nothing else is working, going back simple and just throwing a Texas rig. First cast 4-pounder, he caught one. Next cast 4-pounder, then 5-pounder. Next thing we know, we're looking at 22 pounds. We're like, all right, this is pretty cool. Just sometimes keeping it simple, just is better than instead of trying to go through your entire tackle box and make a huge like math problem out of it. Just dumbing it down and keeping it simple.
For sure.
Yep. So, getting back to because we kind of went a little off track there, but to your recent year with KBF, if you had to give best tournament you had versus your worst tournament, what would you have to say? It doesn't have to be best place, but your best you think was your best performance versus your worst performance.
The best would have to be a toss up between Chick and Pickwick. It was Chickamauga, I was on like a really good. I felt like I had a chance to win. I think Christina Fisher ended up catching 100 inches, and I had like 93 or something like that, and lost some other good ones. But I felt like I could catch 100 inches there, And it's like a lot of you don't get to feel that a lot, Like it's like it doesn't happen a lot. And the other ones I finished fourth in all of them, other than that one, so they're all the same. So it's like that. But I would have to say that the worst one, and not because I lost Angler of the Year, but the worst one was probably lacrosse for me. The trail championship here 2 weeks ago, I guess. Because I was just right around the corner from Russ where it was won, and there was a couple wintering holes, and you probably know a lot about that. Like, there gets I guess right before it gets hard ice, there's places where all the fish in that area pull back to. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of in one of those areas where, it was a dugout. You would pedal in the dugout, be 28 foot, and then it was just 4 foot on all the flats around it. And I was killing them, catching a ton of like 2-pounders, just throwing a chatterbait and a spinnerbait on the flats, and try to drop shot the edges of them some and never caught anything. But Russ ended up winning that, flipping the grass lines like farther out in that 8 and 9 foot. And I never did that. It was literally what I was doing at Chickamauga some 2 months ago or 3 months ago. And I just never did it. And I think if I would have, caught that better quality fish. I think it was the biggest thing I missed all year, I would say, was I got too keyed in on the fact I was catching fish instead of, how those northern fisheries are with largemouth, a 2 pounder to a 2.5 pounder is such a drastic difference. And I've always seen the same thing at Lake Erie too, like a 17-incher being so much better than like a 16.25 or a 16.5. And, I was catching those, but I just, I didn't get any good bites. I caught 52 fish on one spot the first day, and I had like 80 inches. It was just all the
not complaining with that day.
No, but I think I wasn't doing it exactly right.
When you're going for a win, yeah. No, I entirely understand that. If you're looking for a good day of fishing, it's perfect. But if you're looking to
go check jackhammer. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It comes down to one of those things of you gotta I agree with you entirely. Is sometimes you get caught up in, okay, I'm on the fish. Maybe it's just I have to fish through them to find the bigger fish, and sometimes that is the case.
Yeah.
But sometimes certain bodies of water, those bigger fish just act entirely different.
Yeah, it was funny too. The night before that, we were staying with a bunch of guys. And like, how do you think it's gonna go? And I was like, I think I can catch 85 inches if I catch 50 fish. And I caught 52, and I got like 80 inches. And they didn't get any better. Just one of those things. But I talked to like Russ, the guy who won. He was kind of on the same type thing, but he was getting 7 to 8 bites a day and was putting up 92 to 93 inches. And that's how you win tournaments. I get carried away a little too much on probably catching a lot of fish in an event instead of keying in on those right ones. Christine Fisher's really good at that too. She keeps in on the right bites to win.
She's very patient, it seems, and
she is. I've started with Inside over the last 2 tournaments that I was at with her, and I look up at where was it? Pickwick. Yeah, Pickwick, and she had 93 inches, and I hadn't had a bite yet, and I was like, half a mile from her, and I was like, well, this isn't gonna work. So I just left. I went somewhere else and caught like 80 inches even. It was like, well, that'll work for today. And I actually went back to another place and caught 96 inches the next day. So I didn't have as much as she did because she caught almost 100 inches, but I rallied back big. That was probably another one of the, that was probably my favorite day fishing all year. Was because it was kind of cool. It was the regional championship. I was in like 14th place. Russ Snyder was in 13th. And either way, like if he beat me, he won Angler of the Year. And if I beat him, I won Angler of the Year. And he was up 1 after the first day. And I was like, well, I can't go back to where I really didn't catch anything. So I went back and put up like 95 inches in a 3-hour period or something at the end of the day. So it ended up beating Russ. I got him that one time. So it was good.
That was it. He was a little salty from that. That's why he went and whooped you on the cross.
He did.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Speaking of Christine, she's another individual I would love to have on this podcast too, to kind of pick her brain because honestly, I love when she posts on Instagram. Because reading her posts, it's very insightful and I've honestly learned a bunch. Just
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
really more like I've learned some certain like baits and strategy wise, but also I think I've learned a lot like mentally
Yeah.
because posts a lot because she
Yeah.
posts a lot of that how fishing is a mind game, and
Yep.
it entirely is because you'll be sitting there, you might not have confidence in an area until you'll be like, all right, I need to leave, but then you take one more cast and you'll catch a 5 pounder, and then you're like, okay, I have confidence, and then you'll do well in that area.
Yep.
It's kind of cool, but it's interesting. I bet you have to meet a lot of cool anglers, especially one growing up in the Costas, but also being on that big stage with a lot of very talented anglers.
Yeah, it's been fun, and the talent continues to grow too.
Yeah.
That's and a lot of people have said that, and I've even seen it in the 3 years I've done it. It's like the anglers have gotten a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
The anglers that stayed with it and the same ones you knew 3 years ago were a lot better, and just the newcomers that have came are really good too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, seeing everyone else step up their game, I mean, it makes me want to fish better too, and can
Mm-hmm.
beat hard. And I intend to. I mean, I definitely want to change some stuff next year and maybe fish a little bit differently than I, have in the previous years. Kind of like going back to what we were saying. I'm wanting to go for like 8 bites a day instead of catching 30 fish or something like
Just
that.
going for the big ones, not looking
Yeah,
for the quantity.
I don't want to chase the points as much as I want to try to win some bigger tournaments. That's my plan. But
Sense.
that's the goal though for next year to
Yeah.
actually win tournaments. So.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, I remember his name. God, I keep forgetting it. The guy who won the national championship this year down in Louisiana, where he said he didn't catch a lot of fish,
Yeah,
but he
Mike.
keyed on the very small areas, like the isolated. I think it was isolated trees he mentioned where he'd flip. Where he goes, there wasn't as many, and I wasn't catching as much fish. The guys who were inside, shallower,
Yep.
but I found those isolated trees. Those were where the big bites were.
Yep.
So,
Yep. And it's hard to do that too, because it's like a lot of people fish a lot better with 4 or 5 in a boat instead of catching your 5th one at noon. That's a lot. It's a tough.
yeah.
That's a whole other game.
Yeah, a lot of guys will go out there and just catch 5 dinks, and then they're like, all right, now I can put the fairy wand away, and I'll go bring out the big
Yeah.
sticks. And
and I like, like that, catch a limit where I think I can, and then go try to catch bigger ones. But on the flip side of that, a lot of times you're going to catch those biggest ones early when you're catching a limit, and it's like you give up some of the better bites when, you were just trying to fill a limit. And I'm saying it separates people. It really does. People that commit to catching those better fish.
yeah, one of my first tournaments I won as an NYKBF up in New York was on Cayuga, and I had found a stretch the day prior, early in the morning, throwing a chatterbait along cattails, a certain section where they were getting ready to spawn, where the males were in the cattails, the females were roaming the outsides. And I figured that out through flipping into the grass, only catching males. And then my first cast with a chatterbait along the cattails was when I caught a pounder. I'm like, okay. And it was interesting because that next day, tournament morning, I won that tournament in the first half an hour, where I caught 319, 19 and a half, 19, 3/4, 19 and a quarter, I think it was. Because it was only for NYKBF at that point, it was only 3 fish limits for one day. Because that was just only the state tournaments. And the rest of that day, I tried picking apart my other areas, and I could catch 17s and 18s, but I'd go back every now and then to that stretch, fish the same way, and I wouldn't get anything over 15 or 16. Those males moved out, and I tried flipping in, and the females weren't in. So it was interesting, but like you make the point of you biggest ones sometimes come in that first hour to 2 hours of that tournament. It's very interesting how strategies change from each lake to each year.
Of the year from each lake.
Yeah, but it's awesome to see KBF get better. Like either the guys, like you said, the guys who are in it who are just getting better by year. There's guys who have been in it who realize, okay, this is getting serious. I'm actually gonna go all in now instead of just doing it halfway. And then there's newcomers who are like, all right, this seems pretty serious, seems pretty legit. So then they hop into it. So it's different avenues that seem to be benefiting KBF. but it's cool to see it expand. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do now with FLW and MLF joining forces.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I had talked to Chad, and it sounds like things are in the works, but like he said he doesn't know, and I'm sure it was just because he couldn't tell me. He doesn't want to leak information like that, and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But it's gonna be interesting to see what comes of that. Hopefully, it'll be good for all the anglers for sure.
I'm sure they'll want a piece of it with everyone else jumping in on the kayaks platform.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you see so many big guys like Justin Lucas or Jordan Lee going into the native and Jackson and getting into kayak fishing. I mean, KBF, like we just mentioned, this whole episode is growing rapidly. So I don't know why one of the trails wouldn't want to get a piece of that pie, you know. So it'll be interesting to see what comes to that, because I feel like for Chad at least, you know, kind of partnering with one of those big time leagues would not only help him with the management side, but also, you know, maybe bring in some extra attention and media, sponsorship money, whatever it may be. But definitely be interesting to see what happens down the road.
Yeah.
But so kind of moving into some more fun questions, getting away from all the science and bass behavior and all that. Pro staff or anything you wanna plug in here?
Fish USA, they've really done me right this year. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the van and me traveling around in that with launching the Hobie out of the back. And it's been a good relationship with them, and continue to hope to grow it next year. A Pro Angler Hub, it's one I hadn't given a lot of attention to. They design almost all like the pros websites and all that kind of advertisement and whatnot. They're if you're wanting to have something like that done, they're a great company to look at to do that. And kind of right where you're standing, are you in Indianapolis, in Indiana? Where are you?
I'm a little bit north there in South Bend.
Okay, so yeah, Accent Fishing out of Indianapolis. I don't think there's a tournament this year where a keeper hasn't came on one of their products, whether it be the River Special spinnerbait or the Accent Buzzbait. I mean, from the national championship to the 10, I mean, every single one of them. I might not have caught every single fish on them, but I at least caught one on one of those baits. So,
okay.
But yeah, that's. I'm trying to think. I'll leave them. I always leave some out, but I think. Yeah, a lot of people have probably seen the wraps on the kayaks now, and everyone's kind of jumping on that. Mm-hmm. Those are made by BRD Jets. Yep. I got with them at the start of this year, and they're in New York actually. Yep. Williams up there doing a good job getting everybody's boats wrapped, and I mean it's fully customizable. The price didn't go up if you want to have more on it. It's a pretty sweet deal. But yeah, that's about it. I've had a lot of help this year, and it's been good. I don't know. I'm already getting excited about next year. I think really I'm just getting excited about going down to Kissimmee for the 10 championship. So
that'll be a blast.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to repeat it. That's the plan.
There you go. I can't imagine what the scores are going to be for that one.
The thing
they're permitting
me that. And that's, like you see these weights in Florida, like let's say a cold front comes in, obviously it goes down quite a bit, but you still see a guy catch like 21 pounds or something, 22 pounds. A lot of times in Florida, that 22 pounds is anchored by like 1 8-pounder, and the rest are like 2 and 3s. So like inches wise, it might not look as good as some of the quality fish that are being caught. But yeah, I mean, if we catch a full moon or a trailing new moon or something, yeah, I mean, it could be 110, 105. I fished a tournament on Stick Marsh last year that it took like 113 or 115 to win. And I had 100 and I was in 4th.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was unreal though. It was the best bite I've ever seen in my life. It was actually a hurricane was moving in Florida. Okay. It was like a really close call on whether they wanted to let everybody go out, and they did, and man, it was unreal. I mean, I think like 4 records were broken or something like that.
115. I wanted to know what the kicker is for that one.
I know he had a 24 or something, but I mean, at that point, they're all like 24. They were all like 22 or 23.
Just staying consistent, I guess. That's an amazing day of fishing right there.
Yeah.
That sounds like
I think he had a 9 and an 8, if I remember right. I'm pretty sure he had a 9. Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah. He put some.
Yeah, I got to make my way down south a little bit because
Yeah.
I think it's up here is a 6.2, and it's very hard to go above that around here.
You probably got a better chance to catch a smallmouth bigger than that, don't you?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. There was this spring on obviously the river, Ontario, Schmott Bay, Lake Erie. I mean, it's hard. It's not easy, but it's not unheard of to have multiple 30-pound bags caught that spring of just smallmouth.
Yeah.
They get real fat, especially this time of year too. That springtime pre-spawn, and then right now in this fall bite when they go crazy.
Yeah.
And you'll have a 17-inch smallmouth, but it'll weigh 4.5, 5 pounds.
I know. I was with Eric Siddiqui after he won one of the many St. Clair tournaments he's won, and I had a 17 and a quarter that weighed 4.2, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, "This is unreal."
Just feeding up, yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah, you know, it wasn't even like a 21 and stuff like they had been catching. It was just like a 17. But yeah, it's insane.
They're mean, dude. And then it's crazy to watch their weights fluctuate because you'll have that scenario, but then in July, you'll go catch the 21.5-inch smallmouth and it'll weigh 4.3, 4.4.
Really?
And you're like, I would love to have caught this thing 2 months ago when it was 6.5, almost 7 pounds. But there was I'm trying to remember his name. I'm really bad with names, if you couldn't tell. A guy up he fishes Ontario, so he goes out of Sodas Bay, and he caught a 7.1 and a 7.2. I think it was a 7.3. Yeah, it was nuts. That thing was massive. It was like 23 inches, I think, but the belly was just huge. But have you ever seen the record that was tied? I think it was 2 summers ago out on I think the St. Lawrence. I believe it's St. Lawrence. You should look it up. The 2018 state record smallmouth that was tied, and literally it's like a 18-inch smallmouth, but the belly looks like you shoved a softball into it. Like it's just abnormal. You'd think it was photoshopped.
Yeah.
Those things they're mean, man. I don't know. It's especially up here. They're a lot of fun. A whole lot of fun. And
I love it.
largemouth, like a lot of guys like to bedfish for them, and smallmouth, they're the easiest thing to bedfish for. You just throw a little Ned rig or something in there, you just shake it, and they get pissed so fast.
Yeah.
Take 3 cast tops. What's that?
So yeah, with smallmouth, you just have to get it like around the bed.
Anywhere near it, and they just get mad.
Yeah, insane.
Yeah, especially the males. The males are the easiest ones.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So kind of moving along. If you had to name your favorite lake, seeing as though you've gone through all these different areas and you've seen so many different places, if there was one where you'd fish for the rest of your life.
For me, it would be the Stick Marsh.
Okay.
But I'm a big Florida guy. Like, I really, really love Florida fisheries. I don't know if I would ever get tired of fishing, Florida like style and Florida fisheries. It definitely doesn't make you a good fisherman. I will say that. But it's a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
You don't see people usually come out of Florida that are like super versatile. You see that out of like Arkansas, Tennessee River, stuff like that. But Chickamauga would be a close one. I like how easily it is to spread out there, yet you still have those 8 to 10, 12 pounders and stuff being caught.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I don't like Guntersville like for the opposite of that. It's hard to get spread out there. Like some of those, those sloughs that Chickamauga have, I really, really like those. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm a Tennessee River guy now. I used to hate them, but I actually kind of like them now.
Once you figure them out, they can become.
Yeah, and they're the same too. You just have to know Saturday's going to be crazy and just prepare for it. And the fish are still there. It's just it gets kind of hectic out there.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
I'd go with Stick Marsh though. That would be if I had to fish one lake, that'd be it.
Frogs and punching.
Nah, just punch them. You can
keep punching
frogs. Yeah. No. I'm not a frog fisherman.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I'll catch the same fish flipping, but I'll get them in. That's my theory.
All right.
Yeah.
lot of guys just live for that blow up. And it's
Yeah.
a little bit of Shark Week, you know.
Yeah, it is, especially down there.
So is that safe to say that flipping is probably your favorite bait then? Your favorite technique?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of sneakily been. I've cashed more checks punching than I have anywhere else in the last 3 years, or doing anything else. I mean, buzzbait's close, but I've caught a lot of fish punching. I mean, from Wheeler to Chickamauga, everywhere, Pickwick, Lake Erie. I've almost won 4 tournaments punching at Lake Erie. Like every single year I've been up there.
Smallmouth or largemouth?
Largemouth, yeah.
Phew. One of the guys I just recently talked to on here, Andrew Foles, a good buddy of mine, told me that there's some pretty giant largemouth in Erie if you can find them.
There is. There's some. I mean, I don't think I've ever had one over 20. But I've had some like 19 and a half, so we're probably like 4.5 pounds, maybe. 4 pounds. The last 2 years I've been up there, it hadn't really been like that though. It's been like 17s, 17 and a half, 18s. But used to when I went up there as a kid. I remember like right when the Spro frog came out, like 05, probably 06, we were up on Lake Erie. I mean, I bet we were getting 100 frog bites a day. And I went up there 5 years ago for the first time since then, and I was probably getting 70 frog bites a day. And I swear every year I've gone back for the last 5 years, that has been cut in two. To where this year I didn't even catch a fish on a frog. Like I couldn't even get a bite. The punching bite was still good, but the frog was not. So I think people are keying in on the northern largemouth stuff on Lake Erie. So
yeah,
but yeah, it used to be
I'm determined.
Really good.
Yeah, I'm definitely determined to go out and find these mysterious largemouth that live on Erie. That I've only been on Erie 3 times, so I gotta make my way out there for sure. I need my biggest smallmouth is only a 4.9, so I gotta go out there and break that.
You've got a what?
I gotta get back up to Erie and try and break that. 4.9 is wimpy for being from New York, and
it is
not getting any bigger than that.
Yeah. Hey, St. Clair's got a ton of those things though.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I just haven't been able to get over there. I mean, from here. It's 4.5 hour drive, but
yeah,
not having a boat, it's just like, is that drive worth it when I got Lake Michigan right there? You know?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
But so again, moving forward with some fun questions. I got last 2 questions here. My favorite ones, just because they're always different. Like no one's ever really gonna say the same exact thing. So if you could take any 3 people to dinner, obviously past, present, any individual of, doesn't have to be fishing or anything, any 3 people, what would it be?
I'm gonna go with George Cochran, Mike Iaconelli, and I'm a pretty big Jacob Wheeler fan too. Okay. I know he gets a lot of hate, but he's probably that's kind of in between. That covers all the timelines of fishing too, for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm a big George Cochran fan. I mean, that guy. Or, Ron Sheffield would be another one. He's another Arkansas guy that just, killed it for years in the 90s. And George Cochran is too. I mean, they both have. Iaconelli was probably one of the first fishing books I ever read was his, and it was just, I know he's a little crazy at times, but he probably teaches better than he acts sometimes, as far as like his whole things go. And man, Jacob Wheeler, I've kept up with him for probably since he was 19 or 20. Like was a 19-year-old in the Cup and stuff like that. And man, it's just one of those. There's some people that it doesn't matter what stage you put them on, they just continue to be at the top. And he's totally one of those guys.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, Kevin Van Dam or something. I mean, it's just it doesn't really matter where you put them. The outcome's going to end up being the same. And I kind of personally, I just thrive for that consistency myself, and I think that's why I've like those guys that are tend to be consistent. But I don't know, not next year. I've already said it though. I'm going back on what I was saying.
Yeah, he's also one of those run and gun kind of guys. You won't see him sitting in the same spot all day long. Yeah.
No.
Now I don't understand the whole people not liking Jacob Wheeler or whatever. He's obviously a different personality, but like.
He is.
He seems like a genuine guy. I mean, just funny. He's just kind of he's confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
And that group, oh my God, that group of him and Mark Daniels and B-Lat and all that. That's a funny group.
It is, yeah. And they're killing it on YouTube too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they're killing it in MLF too.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I mean, good for them. I think, and B-Lat won his first tournament this year in FLW, and they fished together the championships up in Canada. So that was pretty cool. So, wow, that was a quick. I think that's the quickest anyone's ever answered their 3 people to dinner.
Yeah, I mean that's I'm sure I could come up with others, but I would say that's just the fishing idols.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Tiger Woods would be up there though.
Okay, yeah, golfer makes sense.
Yeah. And if you really just want to get like real, like top, I love like people with real strong mentalities, like real, confident people, and I don't know, Tiger Woods, Tom Brady would be up there too. You probably like that, right? I don't know. Do what?
Tom Brady's not from where I'm from, around the Buffalo area. Tom Brady's not very liked.
Okay, I know which side that you were on.
No. Tom Brady is. You think everyone loved him up in the north, and everybody, unless you're from Boston, nobody really likes Tom Brady.
Yeah. Man, it's just, kind of going back to like Jacob Wheeler. Those guys that just always do it, get it done, those are the best people to watch in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like they're doing something right. It's not like they're just machines. They're doing something right every time. So,
yeah, he's not flashy or anything. He just gets it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't have to be Antonio Brown. He made Edelman like everything out of nothing. So
yeah, that's true.
Wild. So
yeah.
Okay, I like that. I like that answer. Yeah. And then so wrapping up, this is the last question I really have for you. But favorite fishing memory?
Probably the first time I got to fish in Florida.
Okay.
It would be between that and I mean I would say hands down that was probably it. I'd been tournament fishing pretty hard for. I think I was 13. I think I was 13 the first year I got to go down there. And it was just like everything I dreamed it would be. It was just like, and we'd caught it perfect. I mean, it was in February, like full moon was like coming up. The weather was 70, 75 degrees, and I caught 3 7s in a day, a 9-2, an 8-4 in the same day. And I mean, so there's so many in between all that, but that was just 2 days. I was down there for a tournament on the Harris chain, and that was all on the Harris chain actually. But
wow.
I would say that week trip down there, getting to actually go, flip and not pick up another rod for a week was probably it. I look back on that week a lot, I guess. I feel like I learned so much then, but there's a lot of them I could think about, especially even just from the kayaking world. But as far as just overall, that's what I would probably go with.
Okay. Sounds like I know where I'm going on spring break then.
Yeah, that's where we went, man. When I was, what was it? I mean, from 4th till like 10th or 11th grade, our spring break was either Fork or one of the lakes in Central Florida. I mean, that was it. Every first week of March, it was on one of those places.
Yeah. Yeah, Fork and Okeechobee are like my top 2 bucket list. Need to go fish.
Yeah, they're both not going to be cracked up to what you think they will be.
Yeah, I feel like the media just kind of glorified them, but
yeah, Okeechobee's good. It's just they keep killing Okeechobee. I don't really get it. In Fork, it really is just like you can't camp like by a ramp during the summer. I mean, the people don't ever stop fishing. I mean, it's 24 hours a day. That lake has 50 plus boats on it. I mean, even at night. But no, it's unbelievable. I mean, I was actually reading something just the other day about how Fork still pumps out more fish over 13 pounds than like all of Texas combined. Other than that, yeah. So it's got them. There's a reason so many people are there.
What is it? Lake Falcon in Mexico?
Yeah, that one's legit.
Yeah, I would love to go down there.
I've been on Amistad. I've never been on Falcon, but Falcon's better than Amistad even. So
yeah. But I'm gonna get excited just thinking about it now.
I'm getting to go to Mexico next June, I believe. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Which lake you going to?
It's I actually don't even know. It's some tournament down there.
Huh?
Yeah. So I don't even think they've released that yet. They may have, but I don't know.
Just haven't checked up on it.
Yeah.
Funny.
So,
Well, that'll be a blast for sure. I'll have to keep tabs on that.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. It's been awesome to sit down and talk with you, pick your brain a little bit. Before we wrap up here, do you have any questions for me or anything you want to share moving forward? Social media, anything?
I don't think so. If you don't follow me on Instagram, Kodiak Fishing. Oh, it's Kodiak Fishing. That's probably the best way to follow me. I'm as active there as I am anywhere, which is not real active on the internet. Like how long did it take us to get Skype going? Like 10 minutes.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right. It happens.
Yeah, but yeah, that's probably the best way to keep up with me. But yeah, Kodiak Fishing. You can find me there. Hopefully, you can see me holding some trophies there. We'll see. See soon.
Are we gonna see you start a YouTube channel down the road?
I don't know. I would have to buy a computer to do that.
Yeah, very true. You gotta have the editing and everything. All right. It's
We'll
been a
see.
blast talking to you.
All
I
right.
appreciate you coming on.
All right. Thanks, Bailey.
All right. Have a good night.
See you.